What's up, Castlers? LaDefo7 here with more Let's Castle action. And today, I'm going to highlight a daily correspondence online chess game between Tillboy with the white pieces and KINGSLAYER46 with the black pieces. This game took place in the 2024 Shocktober online chess tournament and was completed on October 28th of this year. Let's get into it. Tillboy starts off with pawn to e4. Slayer responds with pawn to c5. You then get pawn to c3, pawn to d6, pawn to d4, takes, knight to f6, bishop d3, protects the pawn on e4, pawn to a6, knight d3, pawn to e6, bishop g5, bishop e7, knight c3, kingside castle, and kingside castle. Both players have secured the king, so Slayer continues with queen c7. Tillboy puts his rook on the same file to set up a discovered attack on the queen. Slayer prevents that by playing knight c6. Takes, pawn to d5, takes, the knight hits the queen. So Slayer moves it to safety, queen c2 by Tillboy, defending the hanging pawn on b2. Slayer moves the knight to a nice outpost on e5. Takes, king h1, queen h4 by Slayer, threatens mate on the h2 square. But Tillboy prevents that with pawn to f4. Slayer puts the bishop on a safer square. Tillboy lifts the rook to f3, bishop e6, queen to a4 by Tillboy leaves the b2 pawn unguarded. So Slayer says thank you for the pawn and goes up by 1 material point. Rook fc1 by Tillboy. The engine would have much preferred rook b1 to try and get the pawn back. If Slayer tried to save the pawn with pawn to b5, then Tillboy could threaten the bishop with queen b4. Then bishop to f6. And you get your pawn back on the d6 square. But back to the action. Slayer targets the rook. Tillboy plays rook to g3. So Slayer plays bishop e6. Queen to b4. Bishop to f6. Knight takes f6 check. Slayer recaptures. Queen b4 defends the pawn on a2. Pawn to b5. Pawn to e5. Queen to h6. Pawn to f5 attacks the bishop. So Slayer slides it out of harm's way and in the process allows the queen to defend the attack d6 pawn as well. Tillboy offers a trade of bishops. Takes. Slayer gets possession of the open c file. King g1 from Tillboy. Rook c4 targets the queen. Queen to d5 by Tillboy eyes the hanging d6 pawn. So Slayer correctly takes the pawn on e5. Tillboy recaptures. Slayer looks to trade off rooks. Tillboy instead doubles up his rooks on the f file. Takes with check. Takes. Slayer checks the king. Tillboy slides his king out of harm's way. You then get queen c6, pawn to f6, pawn to g6, queen f4, queen to c4, queen f2, rook e8, rook d1, pawn to h6, pawn to h3, rook e2, queen to f3, queen c2. Tillboy checks the king on a8. Slayer runs his king to h7. Queen to f8 threatens mate on g7, but Slayer has the initiative and takes the rook with check. King h2 is forced, then Slayer sacks his rook. King takes g2, queen e2 check. King g1, queen e3 check. King to g2, queen g5 check. And that f6 pawn is going to fall. King h2, and Slayer snatches the pawn on f6. Great job by Slayer to avoid checkmate. And now he has a commanding 3-point material lead heading into the endgame. So Tillboy plays the best move of queen to a3. The game continues with king g7, king g3. Both players getting the kings involved in the endgame. Pawn to h5, queen to e3, h4 check, king g4, queen e6 check, takes. And as we look at the board, Slayer has a pawn majority on the left side of the board and an isolated e-pawn. Advantage KINGSLAYER46 as he moves his king to f6, king g4, pawn to b4, king f4, pawn to a5, pawn to h4, pawn to a4, king to e4, pawn to b3, a takes b3, pawn to a3, pawn to b4, pawn to a2. Slayer 1 square away from promotion. Pawn to b5. Slayer promotes to a queen. Pawn to b6. Queen b1 check. King f4. And down goes the pawn. And that was it as Slayer checkmated Tillboy 9 moves later. So KINGSLAYER gets the win and earns the point in this matchup. This also completes a 2-game sweep of Tillboy in the tournament for Slayer. Well done. Thanks for joining me on the Let's Castle channel for another exciting chess video. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more Let's Castle chess action. We've got plenty more moves to make and games to play, so don't forget to hit that notification bell to stay up to date on our latest content. And as always, I'm Elliot F07 telling you to stay tuned, and I'll see you soon.